Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Next Up, where I talk to CEOs, entrepreneurs, and those in the know covering topics from fashion, Gen Z finance, tech, and health. This week's episode, we are going to be talking about all things mental health. And my guest this week is Dr. Alex George. So huge welcome. Some of you might know Dr. Alex already from his stint in Love Island. He's also been working in A&E throughout the COVID-19 crisis. And as of January this year, he was made official UK mental health ambassador working in partnership with the government. So warm welcome, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us today. What should I refer to you as throughout the episode? Would you rather be Alex, Dr. Alex?
Definitely, Alex. It's funny. It's like a DJ name almost, isn't it? Like, obviously, I am a doctor. I promise I'm not a fake one.
When was it really that mental health kind of gained a meaning for you? I mean, it's certainly something that now gets talked about a lot, but when did it actually kind of gain relevance to you? And did you even think about mental health before kind of COVID-19 really hit?
And I think the first time I really become aware of what that was personally was when I was at university. I ended up on placement down in Truro. Nice place, beautiful place, but I didn't have any real friends or family down there, and I became quite isolated. And as I became isolated, I became more inwards on myself. I stopped exercising, lost interest in my work a little bit, my studies, stopped sleeping very well. So I was like staying up late, bad habits, eating badly, not getting out, all the kind of stuff really that I look back now and think, God, those weren't very conducive to good health. And I got in a place where I was just feeling quite lonely and pretty miserable, to be honest. I didn't speak to anyone about it, didn't speak to med schools. I thought, I don't want them to judge me and think, oh, you can't be a doctor, etc. And eventually I talked to my mum about it. She said, look, I feel terrible. And it's a bit of, all the emotions coming out and that kind of thing. And I spoke to her about it. I spoke to my friends about it afterwards. And we came up with a plan basically that I needed to start doing the things that actually would help me feel good. So I was like, right, I'll do a walk every day. I'll actually start gymming a couple of times a week. I was doing that with my friends. Me and my friends started cooking together, making healthy food. I started planning things for the future that I could look forward to. I started creating routine with my study. Sleep became more of a focus for me. And after a few weeks and months, I just felt completely different. I was more myself. And it was very obvious to me looking back then that actually self-care mattered, because it's not just for when you're feeling bad, it makes yourself feel better. It's a protective mechanism. We need to invest in ourselves. That's when the first time I really became passionate about it. When you look at the book now, Live Well Every Day, that I've written, it goes back to those days and those lessons that I learned, in combination with obviously the science and the medicine that I've learned in the years afterwards. I put that all kind of together in that book. But, when you come to the role and what's happened and why I'm in this role, I think a big reason is that people in the last years have learned so much about mental health and how important their well-being is, and people are passionate about it now. Obviously, I lost my brother in summer, which was an awful thing to happen, but it really highlighted that we need to do more. And I've, of course, been working the last few years with charities like Samaritans. I've been working in the mental health space for several years, but this momentum at the moment, this kind of desire for change in the country, I think is very powerful. I think we'll see a lot of good things happening in the next few years.
And I think, that's reflected in that NHS study, which was actually quite shocking. In 2017, only 1 in 9 young people suffered with their mental health, and that's now risen to 1 in 6. And do you think that the pandemic has accelerated a deterioration in mental health, or actually has it kind of, as you through your own experiences, shone a light on the problem and now made it more of a concern?
So I think what we've seen actually is almost a crisis on a crisis. I think mental health has been a problem, an issue, or the kind of support out there, or lack of support out there for mental health has been an issue for many years. And it's been highlighted even further by the pandemic, made worse. So that you talk about that statistic, 1 in 9 to 1 in 6 children, having a mental health condition or needing help in that way. We've had, other modelling being made at the moment by Children's and Young People Coalition, talking about potentially 1.5 million children being affected negatively by the pandemic and either having new mental health problems or worsening conditions. So I think it's a huge issue and we can't ignore it. And that's why in this role, I want to work around stigma. I want to work around creating a whole school approach to mental health so people are educated around it growing up. But I also want to see commitments by government into funding for support. When people reach out, they need to have meaningful support to actually help them, when they do that.
You basically announced on Instagram, you were like, hey, Boris Johnson, you did this post where you were really trying to highlight the issue, saying this is something we need to tackle. And I think you did something quite remarkable. he actually responded. And, now you've got this ambassador role. So, but what would you like it to achieve? And have you actually received help from the government? It's unpaid, obviously. And I think we need to say that, like, you're doing this alongside your regular job.
When I launched the campaign in January, I'd done about 4 or 5 months of research, a huge amount of work behind the scenes, which was actually not seen a lot of the time, talking to all the experts, stakeholders, young people, children, the different charities, to kind of gather the information. Because the way I see my role, and exactly the way I went to the government, is I'm there with a platform, a passion, and some obviously medical background. And with the experts around me, with the charities, with the stakeholders, we can actually make a movement. And that's how it kind of started. And that's how the role came about. I think government couldn't ignore it. So the Prime Minister said when we met, I want to see change. I want to see us achieve something in this role. It's not about PR. We need to see results. And the first thing we did, and I campaigned for straight away, was to get more funding for mental health support teams at schools. So we had £80 million pretty quickly allocated from the government to go into creating these support teams that work with schools, particularly over the next few years. Now, we need more money for that. We need that commitment to be annual and the money to keep coming, because to grow these teams and have it across the country, it takes, it needs to have a commitment over time. I want to see committed funding to support services, so CAN serves, children's mental health services and adult mental health services. Again, so people reach out to support there. But also a lot of the work that I want to do in the role is around destigmatizing mental health. It's still a huge problem. My brother never said anything that he was struggling or talked about his mental health. It was sudden like that. And it's still a huge issue. So I feel that with my platform, by talking about mental health, by continuously bringing that, by sharing well-being and self-care tips and advice and talking about it constantly, I'm hoping that will get through to people in a way that they will actually become, this is normal to talk about, like it's fine, like we can be open about our mental health. So yes, the reach out stuff's important, but have that strength within them and the comfort to be able to get that help. And as I say, the big aspect otherwise is going to be the whole school approach, encouraging a curriculum whereby the end goal isn't just academic grades. It's about the whole person that you're creating, this whole rounded person. Are they happy and healthy? One of those aspects is social media, and that's a very important thing to me. And there will be campaigns coming that I'm working on around changing the way that we, basically giving young people, again, tools to understand how to use social media, how not to use it, and also getting the big companies to take more ownership of what goes on their platforms. That's very important as well. You see so much stuff on TikTok and Instagram, and I think, well, actually, the platform itself has a responsibility to its, the people that are watching their content. So, yeah.
Do you think it's actually possible to create a, more positive and healthy environment with a digital culture?
I think if we give them the tools, the understanding, we teach them about it, yes. It's not just a negative thing. It's giving them the information and advice about how, and the teaching, but how to use this tool. I think your social media platform should reflect your hobbies, your passions, your interests, and your values. It shouldn't be, on there to make you feel rubbish about yourself. So follow accounts that make you feel good. We spend on average a couple of hours a day on our phones. So if you're going to spend a couple of hours of our day on the phone, let's see stuff that makes us feel good. Let's see stuff that's positive. When you're online, you're seeing, a very small aspect of a person's life, and there's a huge amount of stuff you're not seeing. I think that's important in both ways, because people often talk about the highlight reel thing, and you see a picture of someone looking really nice and they might have had an awful day and all that stuff. And that's commonplace. That's quite talked about a lot. But the other thing that people feel sometimes is if they're not seeing someone doing something, that it's not happening. And take, for example, like me, you might not see me posting about the role every day, but I'm doing hours and hours and hours every day of long phone calls, conversations, presentations, debates, research on things that's going on for the role. But you're not seeing it. And just because you're not seeing it doesn't mean it's not happening.
I do think that hidden aspect, and also, in terms of negativity, I think lots of young people get very ashamed if they're being trolled, or if they're having a hard time at school, or if they're having a hard time at university. It's that, as you said, they'll post these pictures, everyone's looking happy, and there's just so much shame to admit that maybe they're not feeling very good. I mean, what would be your advice to someone who's going to listen to this and is feeling exactly what we just said?
I think I saw some stats the other day, but it's like something around half of children either are actively experiencing online bullying or trolling, or have done in the recent weeks or months. One of the things I want to focus on is online safety, online harm, anti-bullying, because it's happening all the time. And I think it goes back to that old thing in a way, that people wouldn't say something to someone's face but they will say it online. And there's this almost like people forget that actually at the end of the phone, there's a human being. And when you're writing this stuff, you're actually having an impact on them. So to people that are, writing things, think about what you're writing. Genuinely think about, would I say this to someone's face? And if someone's, you're seeing stuff that's horrible, that's damaging online, first of all, unfollow those people or block them or come offline, detach from it. You don't need to sit there and just take that. And speak with people, offline, talk to whether your family or friends or a trusted person, speak to someone at school, because it's not acceptable and you don't have to put up with it. And when you look back in years to come, you'll think, why didn't I nip that in the bud sooner? In time, legislation will change and the way that people behave online will become much more accountable than it is currently. And I mean, even if you look at the platforms, the online harms bill that's going through at the moment, that's going to be a lot more in there around how platforms need to moderate and how platforms need to kind of control their environment. Because I know the idea of freedom of speech is so important, but sometimes that free speech stuff, people use that as a guise just to be horrible to people. If you're being bullied online, talk to someone about it. Don't put up with it at all.
Children will have had some form of mental trauma throughout the pandemic, even before the pandemic. What are small tips that everyone can do to kind of like refocus, rebalance, that's away from a screen to boost themselves and their positivity?
People ask me often, Alex, how do you juggle all the stuff you do? Like you're doing A&E, you've got this role, you've got the bath and stuff, writing the book, doing all these different things. I'm living a very busy life, like a lot of people are, but what I don't allow to fall down the list, and I keep it as an absolute priority in each of my days, is investing in myself. And that's what I do. The reason I'm able to do all these different things, because I've realized that topping up the fuel tank, filling up the car with good quality fuel allows me to perform at a good level. So the first thing I do is clear my head, go for a walk, fresh air, bit of nature, in a park, whatever. You set your head clear for the day and you're ready. It reduces anxiety. You've got your body moving, there's blood flowing. And then I start my day, whether you're working at home, whatever, whether you're at school, university, start your day, and then have planned breaks. So lunchtime, or I've just come back just before dinner, come back from a walk, always go for another little walk or a bit of time outside. Exercise, over exercising isn't a good thing, but having regular exercise is great. Endorphins, blood flow to your brain, just a feeling of getting energy out. Feel good factor from exercise is huge. An area we're learning a lot about is nutrition. I mean, we're talking about more about now the gut-brain axis, the idea that what you eat actually can affect the way that you feel. I mean, if you think about it, if you're revising for an exam or you've got an important thing the next day, or you get butterflies, and that tells you that there is a connection between your brain and your stomach, right? You're feeling these butterflies. And we believe much more now, and there's certainly going to be more research done, that actually what you're putting in your gut can really impact on the actual mood as well. So food is important. And also unwind routine. So I mentioned the bath bombs. If I had a busy day, baths on, chuck a bath bomb in and put a podcast on or some music, whatever, and I just unwind. So do something each day, do one thing each day that is genuinely for you. It's not reading a book because it's actually a revision or something. It's something that is about investing in you. So either it's reading a book or playing guitar or listening to music. It might be just chilling out and meditating for a bit, or might be going for a walk, but do something every day that's like wholesome for yourself. Because in this kind of 24-hour culture, especially with social media, people's unwind time is picking up their phone and scrolling through TikTok.
Yeah, I think that's just the absolute go-to, isn't it? It's like you get home, you pick up an iPad. It's that separation is so difficult.
That's not restorative. And if you kind of pick up, you go, it's classic, you think, I just finished my work, whatever. So I'll sit down and scroll through TikTok for half an hour. In the past, that half an hour would have been spent by people by doing something or even just like, whether it's reading or whatever it would be, they would do something, I think, in that time. Whereas now we're just on our phones. So you have to create that separation, I think.
You've obviously got this book that's coming out. I think we have to mention it, which essentially is a 360 perspective on mental well-being. Talk us through a little bit about the book and also the process of writing it, because it probably was incredibly enlightening.
Well, the premise of the book is to kind of combine like my lived experience with, my professional experience. And it's not a book like, here's the blueprint to like absolute success of happiness or whatever, or health. The idea is to give people tips in different areas, 7 different chapters, 7 areas of life, from kind of purpose and passion to sexual health, to food, to nutrition, to exercise, to dating apps, even ways that you can tips and advice basically that people can take away in their own lives. Some parts some parts of the book you might think, well, I got that down, but you think, well, actually, I don't sleep well. And so in that chapter, I talk you through the science of sleep, how you can improve your sleep and what the benefits are. And actually active at the end of the chapter, at the end of the book, there's active components of the book as well to make diaries, to write, and etc. So I'm really hoping people will find it, a benefit. I mean, for me, writing the book, it just helped me evaluate my own life and further be like, right, I could do this better. I can take care of myself in this way. And I hope, when people read it, they go through a bit of a journey themselves. So it's been a really exciting process, and I'm really looking forward to people reading it now and let me know what they think.
I mean, I think it's quite a lonely process writing a book. Was it a lot of research and took time and effort, or actually was it really enjoyable?
But a bit of both. I mean, it's hard work, isn't it? And I'm dyslexic as well, so writing isn't the easiest for me. And it takes a lot of time, but it was really rewarding. And when you're writing about something you're passionate about and you care about, I think it's much easier, isn't it? When you actually really invested in something. And a lot of it was the concepts that I had already and like the ideas I had. And of course, there's always new research and stuff. So it was a lot of looking up, finding out what this, I really enjoyed a lot of it because you finding out the latest sleep science studies, finding out, the latest cardiovascular stuff. Like, it's all interesting.
I think the sleep ones are actually, kind of quickly to go into that, is a really interesting subject. Almost a quarter of all children in the UK were complaining that they weren't getting enough sleep or having some form of sleep deprivation. So what's one thing that we can learn right now from your book, if you don't mind sharing, that we can all do to help improve our sleep?
For adults, I'd say, think about the booze. A lot of people think that alcohol helps them sleep, but actually what alcohol does, it's actually a sedative. So it's a sedative effect on different parts of your brain, and it creates a sleep-like state, but you don't actually sleep very well because you don't go into that deeper stage of sleep. And that's why people have lots of nightmares and really weird dreams at the end of the night sometimes, and the next night also after they've had a bit to drink. So cut down on the alcohol is really good for adults. For children, a lot of it's down to routine. So having similar sleep times, going to bed at some time, getting up some time, and really avoiding, in that hour and a half before bed, avoiding, the phone and blue light and stuff, because the signaling that your phone is giving to your brain is like, it's daytime. It's about, and if you think of what goes on your phone, it's all like algorithm based engagement stuff to trigger, the hormones in your brain to fire, to be active, to be awake, and that's why, no surprise, you scroll through TikTok for half an hour, you don't sleep well after, because your brain is being activated. So think about that wind down routine. Is it having a bath before bed? Is it having a read or something? But put down the phone and try and have some consistency of when you go to bed.
What do you really hope that your initiative, your book, and also all of these conversations, even you and I now, is going to achieve in the future? What would you like to see?
My dream is that people feel that they can talk about their thoughts and feelings in the same way as they can talk about their physical health. They feel that they can reach out and get support, and that when they do that, that there will be good support there for them when they need it. That is the summary of basically what I want to see. I think there's very complex natures to each part of that, but I hope we will get there. It'll be a lot of work, and it may not be something I see the end of, but if I can start and be a part of that process with, the amazing organizations that are out there that already do a great job and brilliant work, if we can kind of lift and go to that next step and I can be a part of that, I'd be very happy. Thanks so much, Flora, and thank you for everyone for watching as well. And of course, please do, reach out if you are struggling. Head to the NHS website, speak, to a member of the Samaritans team if you're really struggling. And hopefully, brighter days are coming. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. That was a real pleasure, super insightful. And to everyone at home, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. Thanks again.